Something that I think is like a really important piece of the buying process is referrals. I trust what my friends and my colleagues and other folks that are in similar seats to me, I trust what they're saying about what they're seeing and what they're using.
I do think that referrals are huge. I think they're massive. It's one of the easiest deals I've ever closed was from a referral. You literally just have to ask, but it's so simple that people don't do it, right? Like they'll ask one time for, hey, do you have anybody in my network that you might know or anybody that you might know that could be a good fit for us? Like that's horrible. I think one, you have to do all the work for them, right? Like research who you want to referral into, why you want to referral with them, how it could possibly help them. Like be very, very, very straightforward. Like this is who I want to talk to. This is why. And then I also love giving the soft out. Like if this is too big of an ask, then that's totally fine. That's like one way from like a seller's perspective. But I also think people need to have KPIs on referrals. There's no KPIs on referrals. There's KPIs on cold calls, emails, all that stuff. And now they're kind of starting to go away and it's going to be a little different. But I think there needs to be a KPI on referrals. Like ask for 5 referrals a week. Chances are you'll probably get 1 every single week, but people don't do it.
All right, Troy, pumped to have you here. Been following your content for a long time on LinkedIn. I think you're one of the people that a lot of people gravitate towards because you keep it real, right? You keep it light, but you keep it real. And I've certainly learned a lot from you back when I was an AE at Klaviyo. And then watching you kind of go out and start building Dimmo, which is like very much at the same time as I went off and left my AE role building First Touch. So I think we cover like a lot of common ground in terms of like our career paths. But you've done like a great job kind of building that content and building Dimmo in public. And so really excited to have you here and appreciate you for like carving out the time to chat.
Yeah, of course, Michael. First and foremost, I appreciate it. And secondly, I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So let's dive right in. You've had entrepreneurial experience, you've had AE experience, right? It's a really unique combo. And I think a lot of account executives, myself included, have had those entrepreneurial itches at certain points in their career. This is your third go at it. So I guess just to start us off, would love to learn about your thought process of when you're right at that tipping point of leaving kind of that like AE role, that comfortable corporate environment and being like, you know what, I'm ready to take this jump. Like would love to just like dive in at that point specifically.
Yeah, of course. So it's funny. I think I don't know if there's a specific point, so I'll kind of backtrack here. So I've done 3 different things. Well, I guess you could say 4. One of them just completely fell flat on its face. So if you want to talk about things that have generated revenue, 3 different things. They were all side gigs. So it's kind of funny when you say like that tipping point. I never really reached that tipping point until I started Dimmo. The other 2 I kept on the side. I let it grow in revenue. And then I'd be like, is this something that's worth my time? Is it not? Is it a big idea? Is it a small idea? Like, what is the path for this company? And there's two things. There's that. And then I also was thinking, can I supplement what I'm making today with if I were to go full time on it? And the answer was never yes. So I always kept it on the side because I'm a little risk adverse, but at the same time, I also want to like make sure I can supply for my family and pay our mortgage, all that fun stuff. So I built the first 2, ended up scaling the first one only like 15K in revenue and ARR, and then the second one was scaled to about 50K in ARR, and then I sold those companies to different software companies. And I was still an AE at the time, so I'm still out there slinging tech, trying to do what I can. Then with Dimmo, I was in a really weird scenario. I feel like mentally my tipping point was always there, but I was never able to actually go full time because again, had to make sure I can help out the family and do what I can do. With Dimmo, I was in this weird scenario where I was a full-time sales rep at Proofpoint and they allowed me to do it. And I was like, great. And then when we launched it, it had way more traction than I would have ever guessed, which is an amazing problem to have. But when you're at a company trying to pay your bills and all that stuff and make sure you're saving up for kids' college, all this fun stuff, like the W-2 is your main thing, right? Like you should be fully focused on your W-2, but this had so much traction that I became obsessed with Dimmo. And every single one-on-one that I went to at the end of my Proofpoint career was like, hey man, what's Dimmo? Like, it looks like you're working way more on Dimmo than you are Proofpoint. I was like, no, like I'm not. All that to say, I had to leave Proof Point because I was moving from North Carolina to Wisconsin. I had to leave Proof Point. My Proof Point job was located in North Carolina. Got this rinky-dink job that was based out of Wisconsin. Was only there for 2 months. It's not even on my LinkedIn. Got fired because they're like, "You are talking about Dimmo way too much." But at the same time, Dimmo just had raised a little bit of money, so I was able to supplement my salary. I don't make any commissions anymore, but I was able to supplement my salary with another salary. So it was like this weird, perfect timing. What was the tipping point? I think one of two things happens. One, you make the jump yourself, or two, you're forced to make the jump. And I was actually in the latter right there. So that was my tipping point. Somebody pushed me off the edge, man. And here we are.
It's really interesting, right? Because like there's always a push and a pull, and depending on how far you go with it, like sometimes you end up getting pushed instead of pulled. But it sounds like you had this like really instant traction with demo, and I guess like would love to dive into that piece a little bit more. Like, what was that aha moment? Like, what was the first step that you took towards kind of like validating this idea?
Yeah. So I'll answer those questions in reverse. The first step that I took to validate the idea was I literally was headed home from the gym one day and I was thinking, how could, again, a side gig idea, I was like, how could I pay off my mortgage without using my W-2? That was my entire point of demo. For some reason, I don't know if I saw a LinkedIn post or heard it. I don't know. I just knew that everyone wants a demo, right? Everybody in the world, when they go to your website, they fill out a form. Chances are they want a demo. That's usually what they want, right? And so then I was thinking, why don't I just host a demo day? And at this time, I had just left an ABM tech company, so account-based marketing. So I was like, why don't I host a demo day where I get 5 ABM technologies in one room and I'll go out and drive the registrants through like LinkedIn and cold email and all that stuff. The companies will pay me and then I'll drive the registrants and they get the lead list. Like, why don't I just do that? That sounds easy enough. And so I went home, went like literally just searched up on ChatGPT and Google like the best ABM software. And there was like a list of 25 of them, reached out to them and said, hey, I'm hosting a demo day on this day. I had no idea what like a webinar software was. I had no idea what I was going to do, how to host. I had zero clue about how to do this, but I was like, screw it. I'm going to reach out to see if there's interest. And that same day I had 12 companies respond saying, we're interested. How do we sign up? And I was like, oh shit. So at the time I was only charging $250 per each one. And I was promising at least 100 registrants. Again, zero clue into what I was actually going to do. So when I had that many, I was like, I can't get 12 of them all in the same room. Like I have to make it 5. I think I made it 5 for the first one. But all that to say, I was like, holy cow, people want to show their demo and they would pay for leads. And so it started off actually doing these demo days. And again, I wanted to pay off my W-2. I never actually took a penny from demo during this demo day phase. But after doing about 4 of them and doing them really successfully, my co-founder, Sarah, was like, what if we just turn this into some sort of marketplace where people can just essentially like get YouTube for software? Like people can go and watch demos. They don't have to sit in, a sales cycle. I wonder if that's possible. She knew the third co-founder, Lucas, and Lucas was like, he was an engineer, or he is an engineer. And he's like, I'll build it. Built it. And when we launched it on LinkedIn, it blew up and we had no idea what to do. We were scared. It was like, it was growing way too fast. And then how did I start? It was those demo days. And then we also got 15 early access customers for the marketplace. So they paid us a one-time fee and they pay us a very small amount every single month today. But that's kind of how it started. That's how I validated. I guess there really was no validation. I was just like, companies want to sign up to show their demo. Let's go create a whole marketplace for it. So
Yeah, so I mean, I think the nugget there, right? Like the piece that is a really tough nut to crack is drawing an audience to those brands, right? And like you have the network, you have the relationships. Obviously, that's like really key. And being an enterprise seller, but also being an entrepreneur, like you have to be reaching out to people constantly, right? And we kind of like cut our teeth as SDRs, but like would love to learn a little bit more about how you were able to attract like this audience to your first demo day.
yeah, so the first demo day, I maybe had around, I don't know, 10,000 followers or so on LinkedIn. So I definitely used that. But what I realized was I was not getting enough traction. I was like, oh crap, I think it was like 17 people registered and it's coming up in 2 weeks. I got to figure out something because I was just paid money. So that's when I reached out to now the co-founder, Sarah Brazier. At the time, she had like 65,000 followers on LinkedIn. And I've been following her since like 2019. I thought she had really witty and smart and funny posts. And so she was also in like the sales and marketing kind of era on LinkedIn. So I reached out to her. I was like, "Hey, I'm doing these demo day things. I already have 12 people that say that they want to pay me, and a few of them already have. Do you want to do something on the side just to make some fun money on the side?" And she was like, "Absolutely, let's do it." And so she actually helped me drive registrants, and a lot of the first 4 or 5 demo days came from just like posting about it on LinkedIn. So kind of like where you're hinting at is like building my audience on LinkedIn is 100% the reason why demo is as successful as it is today. Same thing with Sarah. Like her audience is the reason demo is as successful as it is today. But that's how I ended up driving those audiences. Now today it's a little bit because a few other companies are starting to do demo days, which is fine. I think it's a great way to get people out there and see some tech. And so it's a little bit more um I guess you could say like grunt work. Like I'm actually going out and prospecting to get people in. I'm having other influencers try to shout it out and things like that. Like so that's what I'm doing today. It's a little bit more work, but regardless, a lot of it stems from LinkedIn. And I know that if I continue to host demo days where the audience is live on LinkedIn or they're active on LinkedIn, I'll always be able to fill that registration count because it's just I don't know, it's just easy and it's been repetitive. So yeah.
So really, it's a really great, great story of like how you built that audience both on LinkedIn, but also like it's always fascinating, like going from 0 to 1, right? And like, how do you build that initial momentum and turn it into a business? Um, so with that in mind, like, I'm going to shift us a little bit. Um, there's so much new tech coming out, especially in the GTM space right now. It seems like every other week there's a massive Series A being raised or a massive Series B being raised. And I think you're in a really unique place, given the fact that you run demo and you have all of these different companies across GTM, but it looks like every industry now is really on demo. And I guess it puts you in a unique place because you're the one that's seeing all of this tech and potentially even become before it becomes popular, right? So shifting gears a little bit, but would love to hear some of your thoughts on like the go to market of the future. Um, specifically within the go to market space and the SaaS sales space. Um, so a little bit of an open ended question, but I guess I'd ask you like the combination of AI and human touch, like where do you think we're going here, Trey?
Yeah, this is a funny question. So today we have, I think, like 500 something companies on demo. And I say that because every single one of them I manually put into our back end. That way it can show on the front end so people can actually see it. So when somebody submits a form, I take that form and I copy and paste it into our back end. That way, again, people can see it. And I bring this up because I read every single thing and I watch every single demo that goes on demo. And if it's like a marketing video, a marketing explainer video, and it's just drums and animated voices, it's not going on demo. And the reason this is important is because I read what they do and then I see their demo. And so I'm actually like really seeing what's going on out there. And what I have noticed, sales in the AI space or just go to market in the AI space, they all blend together after a certain amount of time. And that's not a negative thing. I think that there's a lot of ways to differentiate yourselves, but a lot of them blend together from a perspective of AI sales copilot seems to be the hot thing. I see it all the time, or supercharging your go-to-market stuff. Like I see this all the time. Um, Almost too many times. Like I kind of want to run a report to see how many times I see AI sales copilot or sales copilot or supercharger. I really want to run a report to see how many companies say it because everybody's saying the same exact thing. Like we have AI agents, they'll do your research, we'll write you emails. That's kind of like what we do. Or the flip side of that is they'll go into more deal progression where it's you'll do your CRM data entry, all that stuff. And so I think that there's a lot of room to play for these technologies. And I can tell that a lot of people, what they're trying to do is one is make reps and BDRs more efficient. I don't think that many of them are trying to replace them. It doesn't look like it's more so like, how do we get them to be as effective as they possibly can? Because now that you can't land an inbox as well as you used to, you have to find ways to be more effective. So I think that's one thing that I'm seeing. And then the other thing I'm seeing is actually a lot of companies that are trying to make play, but make it user friendly so there's no learning curve. I see a lot of companies out there, like there's a couple like Persona and God Mode and things like that that are trying to do the whole data enrichment and research and everything for you, but you don't need some sort of go-to-market engineer on the back end putting together all these tables and workflows and stuff like that. So that's what I'm seeing. Um, I'd say the most is The most is definitely at the AI sales copilot. Let me automate every single thing that a seller does, which makes total sense. I mean, I would complain my entire day of like how much manual stuff I had to do. My question, because this is what I don't know, is like I think there's a lot of acquirable companies with that. Like where do you go from there, right? Like I don't know where else you go after you automate those manual tasks. Like then what? Is there something bigger? Do you just replace whole SDR teams? I don't know. That's where I'm like actually sitting here pretty excited to see what's to come. But that's what I'm seeing out there on the market.
Yeah. So I guess like, what does your hunch tell you? Do you think that like entry level SDRs, do you think that role is evaporating?
It should be. And that's not like to say with, any disrespect, but I think that any SDR whose job it was to create sequences and play them, and then that's it, like stop there, just see how they go. I think that that would be evaporated, right? Like that is easily done with AI, much more hireable, much more efficient. Like you can do almost 100% of the work of what one of those reps would do. And there was a lot of them, right? Like you have outreach, you give them outreach, and then they run campaigns and they respond to emails and they get replies. And so I think that, yes. Um, I can't see, at least for the foreseeable future, I think AI is so much more powerful than what people think. So I'm not going to think too far into the future right now. I'll say like for the next couple of years. I can't see like enterprise SDRs where like you're going into massive accounts, trying to break in a massive account, and you're working really closely with your account executive, and you're being very strategic with the outreach. I can't see that being replaced. But any sort of lower task or something where you have to do a lot of tasks at once, I think for sure like those SDRs will be replaced. And then maybe inbound at some point too. Um, but I also hear really good things about inbound SDR orgs that are set up correctly. So it's tough for me to comment on that part.
Obviously, I spent a lot of time thinking about this as well. Um, I tend to agree with you. I think there's a spectrum, right? On the bottom right of this spectrum, you have like really low ACV, but a really big total addressable market. So like hundreds of thousands of brands that you could be going after with a really low contract value. And then the top left, you have like a pretty small TAM from the number of companies that you're going after perspective, but the contract value is really high. And I think it's going to be a continuum of like human in the loop top left, right? And then automation bottom right. Um, and so I think right now you have these solutions that are kind of like automate everything or be a co-pilot, right? But at some point in the future, I guess my opinion, our opinion is like there's going to have to be some type of continuum there where you can flex towards human in the loop or flex down towards automation depending on the size of the company and the unique go-to-market strategy that they might have. So yeah, cool to hear your thoughts on that, and love the fact that you watch every demo that comes in. Makes you like 100% an expert on all these trends that are coming out and how people are at least positioning themselves in the market.
It's time consuming. That's actually the part that I'm just now starting to delegate because it takes up way too much of my time. But I agree with you about the human in the loop, and which is why I feel like that's why a company like Clay is also doing, or at least they have a lot of um, buzz, I guess you can say, is because it is like you need a human to be able to run it. But yeah, I agree. I think I like the approach that you mentioned there with the human in the loop, so you can flex up or down depending on what you need. And I think that that's how you're going to have to be. I don't think it's this one size fits all, unless it is like you mentioned on the bottom right, and you're just swinging who knows what it is, $1,000 ARR deals. Automate that, right? Like use AI to do as much as you can. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting because I see so many. There's like 40 of them on demo, and I'm just like, what? Like, who's gonna come out on top? One, and then two, who's gonna like walk away with a fat payday? I don't know. We're gonna find out.
Yep, we definitely will. All right, so I guess interesting question, right? Especially because of the timing, right? You just mentioned like you're about to start delegating more of that onboarding experience and bringing these brands from submission form to the website. Um, what's a project that you've seen recently, go to market or outside of go to market, that you're like, man, well, that's like really interesting. Like I haven't seen something like that.
I'll say two things. Um, One of them will be condo. They're actually starting to get a lot of buzz on LinkedIn. Do you know what Superhuman is for email?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Superhuman stan. I will never use anything else but Superhuman. I think it's amazing. If for the listeners that don't know, essentially an easy way to get through your email inbox, so you don't have to like sit there and look at all the mess, and it makes it clean and all that stuff. A lot of hotkeys to fly through it. So Condo is essentially that for LinkedIn DMs. So if you do a lot of business on LinkedIn or cold outreach or social selling, it's amazing for that because you can message people very quickly and say, like, this is important, this is trash. It's pretty much like a prettier UI and an easy way to get through DMs when you're doing business on LinkedIn. So if you close any deals on LinkedIn, it's great. So that's one thing that I like. Again, my question there is like, how much further can you push that? I'm not sure. But their whole thing is they call themselves the superhuman for LinkedIn. The founder's like obsessed with the founder of the superhuman founder. So he's like mimicking everything they're doing. That's one. Another one is very early. It's actually not on Dimmo, but it's very, very early in its life. But I like the direction that they're headed. And it's called focusbuddy.ai. And so essentially it's like you go to focusbuddy.ai and it's very simple. You hit this microphone and it listens to you throughout the day. You can also mute it so it doesn't listen to you. But so essentially if I'm working right now and I'm like, whatever, I'm writing a LinkedIn post, I'm writing prospecting messages and something comes up in my head that I have to do, I can just be like, remind me to email Michael at the end of the day. And it'll automatically put that reminder on my calendar so I don't forget. So I just talk like what I need to do for the rest of the day. And I talk about like what I need to set myself up for the rest of the day. And it puts it all on a calendar and a to-do list to check off. And it reminds you at that time. Now, what I wish it would do, like we use Trello over here for tasks and things like that. Like there's a lot of different things that I want it to connect to. So then if I do say, remind me to finish, remind me to email Michael at the end of the day, but tell Sarah to email Michael. I wish it would go into the Trello board and automatically tag Sarah. Like there's a lot of things that could happen with that. Um, and so that's another thing that I love because I am very like, oh crap, I got to do that as well. And then I'll forget. And so I just talk out loud almost the entire day to this little bot website thing.
Yeah, it's cool. And it brings up an interesting point too, right? Like there's so many different, I'll call them point solutions these days, right? Like, all right, solution for this, solution for this. And I think one of the big challenges, and we even see it here too, like we have so many different pieces of technology, but they're not all talking to each other. And so from an execution standpoint, you end up with like a bunch of these silos. Um, like, do you think that there eventually may be a company that connects everything and creates like a centralized dashboard for a business, almost like the brain that you can tap into?
Um, I mean, I guess you could almost see it as like a data warehouse or something like that today, but for an entire business, yeah, why not? It depends though. Like that's tough to think about. Like you have to think about even let's go even smaller than a company like Apple. Think of something like who knows, whatever. Like Exxon's huge. I'm trying to think of like a normal size, 2006 cents maybe, right? Couple thousand employees. That's a good company to talk about. So like everything centralized from a data perspective, yeah, I think that that's very possible and I think it's doable. But then and I've actually seen technologies like this trying to be made where it's like, okay, but now how do you let every single user of the company access that data where it sits so like they can literally go grab anything at any time and don't have to ask anybody? Like I so yeah, probably. I guess I would almost say that that's like a data warehouse, data lake house kind of thing. But it's not easily used by like I can see that for sales, right? Like a central repository for sales where it's like your dashboard for literally everything. I could see that and send to like marketing and things like that. But I don't know. That's interesting to think of because there's a lot of business units for bigger companies. So I don't know, like at what scale does it just not work? I'm not sure.
Right. Right. And you'd have like these silos for sales marketing, but then maybe there'd have to be some cross functional piece. Anyway, it's interesting. That's like something that AI does a really good job with, right? Like unstructured data and turning it into structured data. So speaking of future looking, I'm sure you spend a lot of time thinking about this. Like, what does the future of B2B buying look like? Right. You've built Demo. There's a lot of numbers and data out there that says like, over 80% of the buying process is done before you even talk to the company, before you even talk to a sales rep. So I think probably one of the most qualified people in the industry to answer this, like, what is Troy's thoughts on the future of B2B, sales buying?
I have a lot of thoughts about this. So after being an enterprise rep at Proofpoint, so I only had 9 accounts there, and I was a large enterprise sales rep, and it was like there was no way, at least in the foreseeable future, tech was going to replicate every single thing that I did. Right, like the on-site visits, the lunch, the happy hours, the mingling with the channel reps, mingling with the technology partners. Like there's so much that goes on to it where it's very tough to remove a salesperson like that. So I feel like in a scenario like that sales will be very similar to what it is today. It'd be very tough. I do think that people are leaning more on their network than anything right now for sure, right? Like maybe they'll go to G2, maybe they'll then go to Google or ChatGPT. I think a lot of those companies are starting to lose traffic because of ChatGPT. So the way that I see it and the way that we're building Demo is how can you evaluate as much as you possibly can in one place without having to go, jump into a sales cycle with 6 different vendors, and you're obviously gonna say no to 5 of them or maybe all 6 of them and just do nothing. So the way with that I see it is like, how do you evaluate everything in a one place? I know vendor is going in the direction of, can you start procuring through a marketplace as well? I think there'd be some sort of good partnership and alignment with them at some point, but I do see, like, if you go small business, even maybe mid-market, some like mid-market technologies, I can see like a end-to-end, you evaluate it, you chat with some AI bot thingy that has so much data and knowledge of a company to where you don't need to go anywhere else. And then you can also procure for like a fee on that site. I do see something like that. And that's like kind of the direction that we want Demo to go. But at the end of the day, for Demo, it's like, as a sales rep and as somebody that has been a sales rep for years, I hate the amount of bad leads I get. So I'd rather get a very educated buyer and then help expand that deal, take a 5-figure deal to a 6-figure deal because you came in, you watched my competitors, you watched me, you learned about it, like you compared and contrast. Like that's what we're trying to build here. Um, so it's kind of what I see. Like I do think that there is a world in which you will be able to explore, evaluate, and procure technology. The big hangup will be with mid-market companies and above, where you have these large infosec and red line, legal papers and MSAs and things like that. Like that's going to be the biggest hangup, and I'm still optimistic that that can be done through a platform. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the way I see it. It's going to be tough to actually like remove sales reps. I don't think that that's a thing. At least not while I'm selling.
Yeah, I have a very similar opinion to that too. Like I don't think AEs are going anywhere, especially when ACV is higher and the deals are a little bit more complex. Um, Something that I think is like a really important piece of the buying process, and I'm curious how you're thinking about this as well, as referrals, right? Like I trust what my friends and my colleagues and other folks that are in similar seats to me, I trust what they're saying about what they're seeing and what they're using, right? So like, how does that play into the future of demo and the future of technology, procurement?
Yeah, so right now we actually have an integration with a company called Noble. So any company on our site, you can actually just type in your own LinkedIn URL and you can see who in your network uses that technology. So then you can reach out to them. So that makes that part pretty easy. When it comes to the future of, it's funny, this morning I was on a call with my co-founder and we shelved this idea. This was actually one of the biggest priorities for us going into the end of this year. And I think that we're trying to boil the ocean and we're trying to narrow our focus on just a few things right now. But one of the ideas was like have a private community for every category. So if you're a marketer, you can be in the marketing community, sales, RevOps, so on and so forth. That way, if you are looking at technology on demo, so if you are looking at First Touch or if you're looking at Outreach or Sales Loft, you can then just literally, as you're watching the demo, ask your peers and it'll post a question into that community and then you'll get notified when your question's answered. So, hey, I've never used First Touch, just found it. Has anybody used it? Somebody answers and it's like, great, there you go. Like you just got an answer. Because we wanted to, like you just said, I think it's like 80% of people like go to their network. Or I can't remember the exact stat, but I do think that referrals are huge. I think they're massive. It's one of the easiest deals I've ever closed was from a referral. It was one of my biggest deals too. So that's what we wanted to build. Like you go, you evaluate software, you learn about software, you can ask your peers about software. Like it's this one-stop shop to go and figure out everything that you want to know about software. We shelved that idea. We're gonna table it for now to focus on a few other higher priority things. But all that to say, like the last company that I built that was acquired was called Referral. It was a B2B referral platform. So I'm a huge referral advocate.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So I guess, and that's like something that is a really difficult thing to do as a founder, right? Like to have an idea, you push really hard on it, and then you decide, you know what, based on X, Y, and Z, like we're actually going to shut down this priority. We're moving our focus elsewhere, right? And like it's one of the most important pieces of being a founder is being able to look at the data, look at the numbers, and adapt. So, what drove you to the shift? And if you can't talk about what you guys are about to release, that's totally cool too. But curious, what led to the shift?
Man, I could talk about anything and everything. Yeah, so that was a $12,000 mistake. Actually, one of our biggest purchases. We purchased like an enterprise package of a community platform to build into our website. And I think that at the end of the day, Dimmo's like YouTube, right? And so YouTube would not be successful without traffic. It would be a very crappy business. So at the end of the day, if we build a community, it's not going to drive us the traffic and masses that we need. And so that's what drove us to the shift. It was like, we need to 20x our traffic in the next 3 to 6 months. Like, that's just what we needed. A community is not going to do that, but it's going to take a lot of effort to run 6 different private communities, right? And so I think that was the biggest thing. I think when we thought about it, we're like, holy cow, like this, there's nowhere out there where you can go evaluate tech, read reviews on tech, but also ask peers in the same exact place, like any question you want about the technology, and get an answer and have a feed for it. And so in the beginning, I was like, whoa, this can change the way it's done. But at the end of the day, the way that our go-to-market motion is we need to focus really on I what we are narrowing our focus to is website visitors and revenue. Like that's it. So
Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like something that you might come back to later on.
I hope, dude, I hope so. I think it's still an incredible idea. And if it was seamlessly put into the experience of watching demos, I think it'd be amazing. So yeah, it's there, just not now.
Cool. All right. So, I mean, let's talk about that for a moment, right? You started a company called Referral. You're now running Demo. So you got a thing with names. I like it. Curious, like what sales leaders can do to engineer referrals, right? Like it sounds like that's going to be an important piece of Demo in the future. It's something that you've spent a lot of brain time thinking about and building. Like, what does that look like practically for a go-to-market leader or a team that's building out their go-to-market engine?
Yeah, so I think there's really the reason why I built referrals because we had a referral program that gave people $20,000 directly to their bank if they let the referral and then became a customer. And I thought that was absurd. You leave 3 referrals that flip in 12 months, you make another $60,000. Like, that is the easiest side income you can ever have. And we didn't get one referral in like the 12 months that I was there. I was like, there's got to be a way. So then I chatted actually with the founder and I was like, I think I can build a way to automate the entire referral process. And I bring this up because I think one is like, you literally just have to ask, but it's so simple that people don't do it, right? Like, they'll ask one time for, "Hey, do you have anybody in my network that you might know, or anybody that you might know that could be a good fit for us?" Like, that's horrible. I think one, you have to do all the work for them, right? Like, research who you want to referral into, why you want to referral with them, how it could possibly help them. Like, be very, very, very straightforward. Like, this is who I want to talk to. This is why. And then I also love giving the soft out. Like, if this is too big of an ask, then that's totally fine. That's like one way from like a seller's perspective. But I also think like I think people need to have KPIs on referrals. Like, there's no KPIs on referrals. There's KPIs on cold calls, emails, all that stuff. And now they're kind of starting to go away and it's going to be a little different. But I think there needs to be a KPI on referrals. Like, ask for 5 referrals a week. Chances are you'll probably get one every single week, but people don't do it. So that's one thing. The second thing that I did at Proof Point a lot was when there's like a CRO or a CEO or an executive in your company that's been in that industry for a long time, they get to know a lot and a lot of people. So at Proof Point, I would always see if the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, I'd always see if the CISO was connected to my CRO. And like 50% of the times they always were. And I'd reach out to the CRO and I'd say, hey, can I ghostwrite you a message to then introduce me to this CISO? And that worked like a charm. Like, that's where a lot of our conversations came from, was just like, this person met at a dinner 3 years ago. They had a great conversation. It wasn't the right time. Now they just introduced us again. Like, I think that's another way to step into the whole referral game. But at the end of it really comes down to just doing the work, just like a cold call, just like a cold email. Just go find referrals, and they're there. They're everywhere. Go ask your happiest customers. Like, there's follow and connect with your customers on LinkedIn to see if they're connected with anybody, right? And so like anytime I'd close a customer at Metadata when I was there, I'd then connect with them on LinkedIn because they're a marketing audience. That person was connected with somebody I wanted to break into. I'd always ask for a referral. Like, there's no reason not to. The worst they can say is no, right? So that's kind of the way I think of it.
Yeah, this is like, I feel, a really under-discussed playbook for account executives and SDRs. Um, I think a lot of founders think about it, right? Like, okay, who's in my network? Where can I go get warm intros? Who can I design partner with, right? But at the AE BDR level, like, such a difference maker if you can do it well. Um, and it really it comes down to 3 things in my opinion too. Like, first of all, you have to have uh, someone that like can create a meaningful introduction for you, right? Someone that that person respects, like that's super important. You know, if you get an intro from the wrong person, it's not going to make a huge dent. So the right person. But then the second piece, and this is a piece that I feel like a lot of people miss on, and I'm glad you mentioned it too, which is like write the message, ghostwrite them, make it as easy as humanly possible for that person to introduce you, and then give them the opportunity to opt out. I couldn't agree more, especially with like the volume of emails and outreach having increased like almost 5x over the last 4 to 5 months. This is like such low hanging fruit, and I feel like just not many orgs have playbooked this, but it's such an opportunity.
It is, and, like, I just brought up for the first time ever, I feel like there should be a KPI, and now I'm thinking, like, it literally should. Like, just have your sales reps and maybe not BDR, maybe BDRs, I don't know, it's like they're really trying to just hammer out numbers, it's like a numbers game for them, but for AEs, ask for 5 referrals a week. That's focus on 5 referrals a week because I know that they would at least get 1 if they asked 5 times. Like, I don't know. It's crazy. Very underutilized, and then they're just so easy to close. Like you said, if they respect that person and it comes from somebody that they have worked with in the past or that they, like you mentioned, respect to a high standard, that deal will probably close like that, right? Like, hey, you should go check out this company. These are the reasons why we use them. They're amazing. Love them. It's like, okay, cool. Like we already have a champion at that company. We didn't even need to build it. So underutilized. I feel like it'll always be underutilized until people do it. And then that sales rep that does it and then they get an easy win, they'll always do it, right? That's how sellers are.
For sure. And like a lot of sellers will opt towards the, hey, do you have anyone in your network that you could introduce me to? And that's going to bat at
Horrible.
like a terrible percentage.
Horrible. You might
So
as well
like,
just keep sending cold emails. Yeah, the way that you're doing
right,
today. Yeah. Horrible. Horrible.
right. And I'm sure at some point that will get playbooked by AI and then you'll have to actually do the work, right? But that's a relationship play. So I feel like that's going to work long term, regardless of where we go on the AI side. Um, cool. Awesome, Troy. Well, this has been like a great conversation. I think that's like pretty much all that I have on my side. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or cover?
No, man, I think that's it. I love talking about demo and I like the thoughtful questions around like honestly the one that really made me think the most and now I'm thinking about it is if there will be some central repository for like the entire business. But no, man, I think that's it. I really had a good time being on here.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you, Troy. Well, yeah, for folks that want to follow Troy, like Troy, you want to share how people can find you online?
Troy Munson on LinkedIn. I'm coming out with a kind of like a fun and funny podcast, so maybe there too. I don't know what you're gonna search up for that. I don't have a name for it yet, but
Love it. Yeah, look out for Troy's podcast. And he's already got a podcast that does like 10-minute clips on tech that's on demo or joining demo. Really helpful if you're a buyer in the market too. So, Troy, thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate the time, and we'll chat soon.
of course, man. Thank you.